What's happening, YouTube? Eric Bauer back again. It is a Monday night, a little after 8 o'clock my time. I just had some fucking delicious dinner. I'm already coughing. That's what's on the menu for beverages. What's happening? Been a little while, probably close to a month since my last update, where I talked strictly about soundtracks for over 45 fucking minutes. Probably my longest video yet. For those of you that suffered through it and left comments and engaged me in conversation, as always, thank you. That is why I continue to do this YouTube thing, is for the engagement and for the interaction with like-minded people. That being said, I have a new video to put up today. It's actually one I've been kind of wanting to put up. It wasn't as loud as I thought. Kind of wanting to put up for a little while now. And I figured now is as good a time as any, especially considering my ability to procrastinate these things. Anyway, this is going to be a departure from the usual music talk. Today, I'm going to talk strictly about fucking movies. But before I do that, I'm going to make a little bit of an announcement, I guess. I'm about to hit 50,000 views, which is not that many in the realm of YouTube, especially with bigger YouTubers who have multiples of thousands of subscribers to their names. Look at 50,000 views is probably a pretty paltry number, but to me it's kind of a big deal. I've been doing this thing a bit over 3 years now, and I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to keep finding ways to keep my content fresh. That being said, in light of coming up on 50,000 views, I want to do a contest. As far as what the contest is going to entail, I want to see fucking soundtracks. Specifically, I want to see soundtracks that you consider to be inseparable from the movies for which they're scored. Now, there are a couple rules to this contest. If you're a subscriber, and you have to be a subscriber in order to be qualified for this contest. If you are a subscriber and you are also the owner of a YouTube channel, content creator as it were, you have to put your submission in as a video on your own channel. Now, in order for me to know that you did it, comment with the link to the video down below. If you're not a content creator, it's okay. But only if you're not a content creator. You can go ahead and list those albums down below in the content, in the comments, not contents. It's been a long day. I worked for a little over 10 hours. Made dinner. Should be relaxing. I'm watching some shitty movies, but this is too loud. Clusterfuck already. As far as how many I want to see, gimme 3. As well thought out as possible. And basically, we'll go ahead and say contest is open for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today is when you'll have to have your submission, or like I said, if you're not a content creator, you don't own a YouTube channel, but you do want to participate, comments below. Now, as far as what is going to be given out, I tried to think of something that I could do that would be a little bit different from the norm, and kind of keep it related to what I've been talking about lately. So the first thing, this is open to my subs wherever you are. Also, I don't care. However, this is going to be the first element. This is an ex-rental VHS copy of Michelle Soavi's Stage Fright. I have a second copy, but I can attest that this copy plays through just fine. However, if you are a VHS collector in a region that is not NTSC, this will not work unless you have an NTSC player. So if you're in a PAL area or a CCAM area, you won't be able to watch this. But it's still a fucking rad piece. Unfortunately, the cover was cut when it was for rent. But I did a bit of cleaning up, made it nice. The second thing, and this is a one package deal, so not multiple prizes. This is the second thing. Now this is a little bootleg that I put together a while back of the soundtrack to the movie The Soldier, which is a movie directed by James Glickenhaus, who directed The Exterminator, as well as Jackie Chan's The Protector. This is an action movie starring Ken Wall, and the soundtrack was composed by Tangerine Dream. This is one of those albums that I think that Tangerine Dream, or at least the estate of Edgar Froese, would like to forget about. I sourced the soundtrack as best I could from what I could find. I do own the movie. Really great. Soundtrack's awesome, atmospheric. If you like Tangerine Dream, it's kind of a gimme. Anyway, that's what's going to be the prize. Now, I'm almost 10 minutes in. I haven't even talked about what I wanted to talk about. So, as far as the topic at hand, we're going to talk about some fucking horror movies. And specifically, some horror movies that I consider not just obscure, but as well as obscure, unconventional. The first movie I want to talk about is The Zero Boys. Now this was released by Arrow Video last year, I want to say. Awesome job, as Arrow always does. Double DVD edition. Reversible cover, like Arrow always does. Excellent, excellent package. Booklet. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about the Blu-ray. As much as I do appreciate the package that this has been put in. But rather the movie itself. If you're not familiar with The Zero Boys, it's a 1986 horror film directed by Nico Mastorakis, who's a Greek director, excuse me. He's a director from Greece, making him Greek. And as we all should know, whether it's black metal or otherwise, all the best things do come from Greece. Mr. Mastorakis was also known for directing a 70s movie called Island of Death, as well as a movie called Sky High. He did a movie called Blind Date, which Kirstie Alley starred in. Pre-Cheers. He did a movie called The Wind, which starred Meg Foster. If you don't know who she is, she's a really creepy lady with the super blue eyes. It's in the movie The Abyss. And some other shit that I can't think of right off the top of my head. That also had Wings Hauser and Steve Railsback, and was a real piece of shit from what I remember. But a fun movie nonetheless. Much like most of Nico Mastorakis' movies. Island of Death is just like renowned for being terrible, but like almost so bad that it's just a work of art. Anyway, Zero Boys came out in 1986. It stars a actor named Daniel Hirsch, who, as far as I know, didn't really do anything beforehand other than Sky High, again directed by the same director. Also another actor by the name of Joe Estevez, who, if you think that name is familiar, it's because he's Martin Sheen's brother. uncle to Charlie and Emilio. And it also stars Kelly Maroney, who you should recognize from Night of the Comet, as well as Chopping Mall, and a small part in The Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Now you know. Knowing is half the battle. I don't know. I think The Zero Boys is notable for a few reasons. One thing to note, and I believe that Arrow released it around the same time as the Blu-ray, is the soundtrack by then unknown, for the most part, Hans Zimmer, who you should all know that name, scored Gladiator, The Dark Knight, Black Rain with Michael Douglas, fucking True Romance. He did the score for Blade Runner 2049, as well as like 1,000 other scores, like Dark Knight, Inception. Fucking great composer. Really running kind of roughshod on the Zero Boys soundtrack. And he scored that with Stanley Myers, who also was kind of a sort of well-known in the 80s. Scored The Deer Hunter, the movie Schizo, and the movie The Witches. That aside, I consider The Zero Boys a little bit unconventional because it broke the mold to a degree of your everyday slasher that we've been kind of subjected to since 1980, whether it's a camp slasher or a sorority house slasher or any other slasher in between. Now, on the surface, Zero Boys is kind of a camp slasher, in that it takes place in the woods. However, it's a bit different in that the protagonists are all well armed, which kind of puts them not necessarily at an unfair disadvantage to the people in the movie stalking them. It's also probably notable for being one of the first movies to kind of explore, for what lack of a better term, I guess, has been deemed the torture porn subgenre of slashers. Saw, Hostel. There is an element of voyeurism and degradation of that voyeurism that goes on in the background of the Zero Boys. Now, it's not a major key plot point, but it is there, and it is notable because no movie, to my knowledge, had really focused on that type of idea, except for maybe Videodrome, but Videodrome was like in a total other realm as far as horror is concerned. One of the things that I find it notable for is that in the canon of Nico Mastorakis movies, The Zero Boys is probably his best put together movie. Now, it doesn't necessarily boast his largest budget, but as far as the atmosphere that he's able to build, the script that he works off of in the movie, and the actors in the movie really put their best foot forward to deliver a compelling feature that, it's not long. It's maybe 90 minutes, and it's never boring. It's never a pain or a chore to watch. There's always something, to appreciate that's going up on the screen. Really great stuff. And before Arrow's treatment of this movie, honestly, I had never seen this movie. And I fucking grew up in the VHS era. So I was renting horror movies in the 80s, in the 90s. I worked at Scarecrow Video in Seattle, Washington for 2-3 years. And if you guys are into collecting and have been for any amount of time, that particular establishment should be, a common name for you. Just a really great movie, and one that really, really ought to be seen by as many people as possible, especially people into the horror genre, slashers specifically, but not just that, action movies also. Because it does play out underneath all of that, underneath the atmosphere of creepiness and disturbing voyeurism, there is an action element to it. Like I said, it's never boring. It doesn't rest on its laurels. There's definitely, exposition, but none of it's unnecessary. There's not really any fat to be trimmed off of this movie. It's just really great, and I can't recommend it enough. Second movie I want to talk about. The movie Scarecrows. My copy's a VHS copy. This was released on Blu-ray by Shout Factory a few years back. I don't know when. Some time ago. I don't have that version. VHS is my preferred version to watch a lot of these things anyway. As far as what Scarecrows is, it's a 1988 horror film. Oh man, I don't know if any of you have tried these drinks, these apple cider vinegar drinks. They're delicious, but got some bite. So, Scarecrows, 1988, horror picture written, produced, and directed by a man named William Wesley. The only other film that he did, to my knowledge, is a small direct-to-video movie called Route 666, which starred Lou Diamond Phillips and Lori Petty. I've never seen it. As far as the film goes, I've seen the movie in VHS form many, many, many times during my tenure working in video stores, as well as renting from video stores. I've been told it's not good. So, take that for what you will. As far as the movie goes, cast-wise, you've got Ted the Wolfman Vernon, who, if you watch television, especially in Florida in like the 80s, you'd recognize him as being an auto dealer. He had a lot of car commercials for his dealerships. He was also a professional boxer, as well as an actor. You've also got David Campbell, who was previously in Deadly Prey. He's also in Hell on the Battleground. And his most recent movie was Deadliest Prey. All three of those movies are David A. Pryor films. If you've never seen Deadly Prey, this Deadliest Prey is basically a remake of Deadly Prey. Deadly Prey is like one of those best worst movies. Tremendously bad, but oddly watchable. If this is too loud, I'm sorry. We're listening to Street Trash soundtrack. Because I haven't put it on in a while, and I felt like it might be appropriate. And it has these sound bits from the movie that just are like clips of people melting into toilets, and it's hilarious. Anyway, I've talked about it before. I lost my place. Fuck. Scarecrows. Cinematography is fantastic in Scarecrows. That's one of the first things I want to talk about. It was actually photographed by Peter Deming. I did take notes, so if you think I'm reading something off screen, you're right. Fuck it. I'm not perfect. I can't memorize everything. He is notable for having scored Twin Peaks, the 2017 Season 3. He also scored Mulholland Drive, From Hell, as well as Evil Dead 2, among many other films. No, he's... Wow. I'd stop this and just start the whole thing over, except I'm already fucking 20 minutes in, so deal with my flubs. He was not the composer, he was the cinematographer. I did say cinematographer, and I did say photograph, but then I said he scored, which is wrong. The fucking film was scored by Terry Plumeri, who hilariously had previously scored the movie Black Eagle, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme and Sho Kosugi, which is definitely not one of Sho Kosugi's better films. However, that movie is rad. If not for anything else, then it's got Van Damme in a very uncommon role as a villain. It's hysterical, terribly awful, but just great. Kind of hard to come by these days, I think. I don't know if it's ever gotten a Blu-ray treatment, or DVD treatment for that matter. Anyway, all that said, This movie fucking rules. Like I said, Scream Factory knew well enough that it was great that they put it out on Blu-ray a few years back. It's one of those movies that honestly, if you weren't religiously looking through the horror shelves in your video store in the late 80s, through the 90s, you would never know it existed because it's never thrown around as far as slasher movies go with like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, which is fair enough. It's a really, really low budget movie. It centers around a group of fucking mercenaries that heist a military payroll and then escape in a airplane that's being flown by a hostage and his daughter. The pilot played by David Campbell, who you would recognize again from Deadly Prey or Deadliest Prey. As far as that plot point goes, it kind of goes beyond that. They're double-crossed by one of their own, who basically tries to escape with the cash while leaving his friends for dead in an airplane meant to crash. However, they're able to land it in a cornfield in the middle of nowhere. They stumble upon a house surrounded by some of the fucking most effectively creepy scarecrows that you'll see in any 80s horror movie. And then they are then picked off one by one. I consider this movie as well somewhat, what's the word? Unique in that the protagonists are, for the most part, pieces of shit. There's a couple people that kind of atone for their misdeeds towards the end of the film. However, it puts them in the scenario with the full disposal of their arsenal at hand. So they're all armed with guns, grenades, night vision, like comm sets so they can talk to one another, regardless of where they're located. So it also makes some pretty great use of night vision photography, which, in 1988 wasn't like a stupid trope that would be exploited once that fucking shitty-ass Rollerball remake came out, starring LL Cool J and Jean Reno. That's crap, by the way. Don't watch that. This is not a recommendation for that. It's just saying that it utilized this trope kind of, as far as I know, started in Scarecrows. I had not seen a movie of an earlier date that utilizes like a night vision sort of viewpoint for the camera's eye, to where the audience is seeing the surroundings as the characters in the film are seeing the surroundings. Not only that, but the atmosphere that it manages to build with like a limited set. Literally, it takes place in one house in one field. It's very, very straightforward. But it never feels like they're recycling locations or just reusing areas because they had nowhere else to go with the film crew or the cast. It doesn't feel like, like a low buck fucking piece of garbage that a lot of the movies coming out around that time did. Really fantastic use of their environment. And as I said, the atmosphere that it manages to build is a palpable atmosphere of dread. Even knowing that it is kind of cheesy, it definitely does adhere to a lot of the genre tropes. Once you get beyond its unconventionalities, it still manages to build an atmosphere that's creepy. Like the close-ups of the scarecrows are always a bit unnerving. And the villains in the movie are never explained, which I know a lot of reviewers in the 80s, namely like Roger Ebert, always had issues with villains that had unexplained motives. It's never been something that's bothered me, which is why, like movies like The Hitcher never bothered me adversely. Stuff of that ilk. In this case, I'm also not bothered by the fact that I'm supposed to root for people who essentially are bad guys. There's a few that remain unlikable, but they always get theirs. And it's always tense. It's always this palpable, edge of your seat sort of watch. And another movie that I won't hesitate to recommend as far as being just like an unsung gem of 80s horror films. Now, the last movie I want to talk about, we're at the 25-minute mark. I hope I don't go too long on this bullshit, but if I do, I do. This is Of Unknown Origin, starring Peter Weller and Shannon Tweed, directed by George P. Cosmatos. Now, I mentioned George P. Cosmatos' son, Panos Cosmatos, in my last video, where I talked a little bit about Beyond the Black Rainbow and its soundtrack. I'm fairly certain this was George's first movie as a director. He also did Rambo First Blood Part 2. He did Cobra. He did the movie Leviathan. He also directed Tombstone. And I know he's done a few others that I'm probably forgetting in there. Really phenomenal. Definitely a director with a unique voice. Regardless of the tropes that his movies, which he directed, adhered to, he always was able to inject unique sensibility into them. Especially when using seemingly one of his favorite actors, Lance Henriksen, who appears in both Of Unknown Origin and Leviathan. It's based off of a novel by an author named Chauncey Parker. The novel is called The Visitor, which is not the same The Visitor that was adapted into a movie, some crazy fucking Italian movie that starred Lance Henriksen, John Huston, Glenn Ford, Mel Ferrer, Sam Peckinpah, or Shelley Winters. That's totally unrelated. For a while I thought it might be the same source material, but it'd be weird if it was. So, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, as I said, Of Unknown Origin, I don't know, I guess I didn't really show it very quickly. Peter Weller, Shannon Tweed. This is an old-ass big box VHS copy. I don't know if this ever came out on DVD. I do know that Shout Factory is putting this out on Blu-ray in the next month or two. And I may actually upgrade to that because I like this movie that much. Peter Weller is amazing. I think I spoke somewhat about Peter Weller previously as well because I talked about fucking RoboCop, Naked Lunch, fucking Scanners, or not Scanners, I'm sorry, Screamers, fucking Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Aliens. No, not Aliens. I am so jumbled right now. I'm sorry. But thank you for watching. And if you decide to participate in my fucking bullshit, thank you again. As well as I said, it stars Shannon Tweed, who at that point I don't think had been in any movies previously. Shannon Tweed married Gene Simmons from Kiss. I fucking hate Kiss, but that's beside the point. Don't hold it against me. She was also in Detroit Rock City, as well as more Skinamax movies than you can count on either hand. It also stars fucking Maury Chaykin, who is an actor that is given not very much screen time, but I felt like it was worthy of saying because he's a great character actor. You recognize him from My Cousin Vinny, War Games, Turk 182, which starred Timothy Hutton. He's in Death Hunt with Charles Bronson and Lee Marvin, another fucking great movie. Anyway, like I said, he's not given much screen time in Of Unknown Origin, but he's a great character actor. And what bits he is in this movie is great. As far as the movie itself goes, it was classified, I mean, it's right on the big box, horror. As per Warner Brothers Home Video, Warner Home Video. But I think that was mostly because they didn't know how to market it at the time. Because it doesn't really adhere to any horror genre tropes that had been established when it came out in 1983. The basic premise of the movie is there's a family. The patriarch is Peter Weller, plays a stockbroker or like Wall Street guy named Bart. They live in a brownstone in New York, Manhattan area, probably. I don't know if they ever really discussed exactly where. He renovated the brownstone himself, so he's very proud of the space. His wife and his kid go to visit his in-laws upstate for like 2 weeks or something like that, and he discovers that he has a rat, and then proceeds to try to get rid of the rat without bringing, good God, without fucking vinegar, man, without bringing any outside help. And it's funny, at the beginning of the movie, when he first realizes what his issue is at home, he states that one of the reasons he doesn't want to bring in outside help is because he's put so much work into this home. He doesn't want them to come in and wreck it, which is what, back in like the early 80s, most exterminators just came in, they fucking rip out cupboards and pantries and open up walls and just tear the place apart, looking for your infestation. Especially when you're so certain that there was only one rat pestering him. Now the rat itself is shown very cleverly throughout the movie. So you get a lot of first-person views of the rat's perspective. You also get a lot of macro photography of the rat's hair and the rat's feet, specifically its toenails. Basically, it wants to really hammer home just how filthy and disgusting this rat is. When you do finally see the rat, it's obviously a creature effect. It's fucking huge. It's like the size of a cat. Which, as far as fucking New York rats go, is not necessarily uncommon. Maybe uncommon to the area in which this film is supposed to take place. So basically, Peter Weller loses it during the extent of this film, trying to get rid of this rat. It's also come at a time where he's up for a promotion at work, and they've tasked him with a pretty heady responsibility that he's on a very, very, very strict timeline to get done at work. It's really simple, but at the same time it explores so many themes and so many elements that its basic plot is really only scratching the surface. It touches on a lot of like the perceived norms of like masculinity, especially in the early 80s. It also touches on the idea of suburbia to a certain degree, even though it doesn't take place in a suburban location, as well as like the ideal, like utopic environment that people were intent on building for themselves at that point, and how the littlest thing could set somebody off to completely lose their shit and become a totally different person. The performance that Peter Weller gives is probably one of his best. Right up there with RoboCop and Naked Lunch, in my opinion. And Peter Weller's been in a lot of movies, and in a lot of movies that I fucking love. But this one really stands above all of those. It's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. See it however you can. You can probably find it on YouTube. Wait for the Blu-ray from Scream Factory or Shout Factory. Or if you are a VHS collector, fucking buy the VHS if you can find it. I don't know how much money it runs for. These tapes can go for fucking crazy amounts of money these days. It's nuts. That being said, I've got nothing else to talk about. I know that it's been about, like I said, 2 weeks since my last update, or no, a month since my last update. I am still on YouTube. I do still watch other content creators' stuff. I haven't honestly been buying a lot of records as of late. So I'm probably not going to be talking about them anytime soon. I have a few other ideas lined up. I might do a fucking collection update of movies that I've been fucking buying. Maybe later on in the week. There are a few channels that I have been kind of watching that are a bit new to me. And I'm going to actually go ahead and do a couple shout outs. One of those channels that I've been watching a lot is a guy called Todd E. Walnuts. He basically posts like fucking movie collection updates, as well as just like runs through various fucking boutique like Blu-ray and DVD labels like Arrow and Shout Factory and Code Red and 88, that type of shit. And his collection's insane. But he's got a lot of cool shit to say about the movies that he shows. Really knowledgeable dude when it comes to fucking cult films and just film in general. Cool channel. I highly recommend you check it out if you're into fucking movies. I've also been watching this dude called T-Money86, who is another movie collector on YouTube. And he doesn't have nearly as many subs. He's right around the 300 mark, a little over that. He just did a 300 subscriber contest. Cool, down-to-earth dude. Really cool collection of movies. Again, he collects a lot of that boutique shit like 88 and fucking Code Red, Scorpion, Redemption, that kind of shit. Cool stuff. Sub to him too if you're into the movie shit like I am. And then another YouTuber who has been with us for a long time. He started off doing metal videos, and he's been doing a lot of fucking movie updates, showing his Blu-ray collection. He started with his Shameless stuff, and then he also showed his 88 stuff. That's Charlie Pettiford. He's kind of gone off, done his own thing for a couple months at a time here and there, but he's still at it. And I'm still watching his videos, and he's putting up some cool shit. Just down to earth, showing off his movies, which is cool. So, if you're not already subbed to Charlie, sub to him too. I'll have links for all three guys down below. And again, if you want to be a contestant in the contest for 50,000 views, if you're a content creator, have your own YouTube channel, you got to hit me with a fucking response video on your own channel. And you do have to be subbed. If you are just wanting to enter and you don't have your own channel and you're not comfortable with doing like a private video that you just want to link me to, put it in the comments. But again, you've got to be a sub. If you're not a sub, you're not going to get anything. And the prizes again, this movie. And this movie is fucking awesome. This is one of my favorite slasher movies of all time. Fucking great Italian movie. Michele Soavi also directed The Sect and The Church and Cemetery Man / Della Morte, Dell'Amore. And then this bootleg Tangerine Dream, Codename The Soldier, soundtrack cassette. One of the best things I think I've done as far as tape releases go. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating. Thanks for commenting. And I look forward to interacting with all of y'all down below. Peace out, YouTube.